Hey Jay! Happy Halloween! Are you on the spooky day? I ended up sleeping past what I would normally sleep past. I took today off from work so that I could do the stream. And then I was like, crap. Because I realized at the last second that the story that I had originally wanted to narrate um, was not cleared for narration. Like the author didn't give me permission to have that story narrated, so I was like, well, snap. Now I gotta go find another one. You woke up an hour before you usually do. So I have my alarm set for 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't have to technically be at work until 8, but I need the time to wake up, make my coffee, feed the animals, read my Bible, that kind of thing. So I normally am up much earlier. I actually ended up sleeping past 8 today, which is not normal, but I guess I really needed the extra sleep. So, and I'm also helping pet sit for someone else, an older lady in our church, and her husband. Her father isn't doing too well, so they had to go and drive to another state to go visit him, and they needed someone to watch their dog and some cats. So had to go do that. Same, wake up at 6 in an hour to actually process the fact that it's morning. Amen. Amen. Yes. Like my model. Thank you. Stella was kind enough to make me a model for this year. Poor thing was, very stressed out about it, but she did a fantastic job as usual. So I wasn't gonna put too much stress on her, and I made sure that I paid her for her time very well, because she deserves it. She doesn't charge enough, in my opinion, but it's easy for me to say when I can afford that. So. writing out paying artists is based. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's not like I'm not an artist in my own right, but I just don't have the time anymore, you know? Feel like you get time to write music when you're on break. See, but I have a full-time job. Uh, that I wrote an entire paragraph. Yeah. You want to get a lunch break? Half an hour. I get a half hour. Yeah, it's hardly anything. I just take that time to, to catch up on anything that I've been reading, fanfiction-wise. Thankfully, I work from home, so, it's not completely, it's not all terrible, but yeah, they don't give us much. They also technically give us two paid 15-minute breaks throughout the day. Once again, those don't really amount to much, and I get up and wander around enough to the point where I just don't even pay attention to that anymore. Well, even when I was in office, it was always a half hour anyway, so. There we go. Okay. That I've let people know that I am now streaming. Think about abusing the smoke break. I don't smoke, though. I've never smoked, and I've never wanted to smoke, because it always bothered me, even when I was little. Like, I can't even be around vape smoke because it just gives me a headache. Unfortunately, my fiance definitely smokes. So I was like, I try, it was like, I try not to get too far away when he's smoking, but yeah, it's hard sometimes. Like, and it's not just him who smokes, his mother smokes too, and so does his brother, as far as I know. I don't smoke either, just use those film prop ones. The taste is awful, but you get to do nothing for Oh, there we go. I was like, what happened? Huh, my headset shut off. Like, that was so weird. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. um, what was I? Oh yes. So while I was stuck. Everyone around them knew that they didn't smoke, and so in order to get around that, for his boss, he got like some herbal, you know, herbal joint type dealios that had nothing in them except for random herbs that didn't affect anything. And so he used those to get around and passed them out to all of his non-smoking friends so they could all take smoke breaks along with the regular smokers. Anyway, hi Macaroni King. Sorry, you came in just as I was trying to figure out why my headset just stopped working. But yes, hello and happy Halloween. I was a little, unsure if I should do like one of the really famous creepypastas at first, but when I realized that I had to, like I was like I didn't have enough time to read through most of the creepypastas that I could do, ones that actually have given permission for narration. So, might as well go with the classics, right? Although I did pick one that I don't remember having heard before, so it's still a classic, but it's one that I personally have not really read. Anyway, I guess we should probably get started, huh? Almost 15 minutes. Welcome to my spooky abode. It's a little bit dusty, but there's only so much a maid can do, right? But first, let's put on some mood music. Ah, yes. So soothing. Man door, hand hook, car door. That's definitely classic. Can you guys hear the background music enough? Is it too low, too loud? Let me know if I need to adjust the sound. In fact, I might turn up the volume just a tad. There we go. Suppose we shall just jump right on into it. Our first story is from September 19th of 2012. Title is Ickbar Bigglestein by Stephen D. Harris. When I was a small child, I was afraid of the dark. I still am. But back when I was around 6 years old, I couldn't go a full night without crying out for one of my parents to search beneath my bed or in my closet for whatever monster I thought was waiting to eat me. Even with a nightlight, I would still see dark shapes moving around the corners of the room, or strange faces looking in on me from my bedroom window. My parents would do their best to console me, telling me that it was just a bad dream or a trick of the light. But in my young mind, I was positive that the second I fell asleep, the bad things would get me. Most of the time, I would just hide under the blankets until I became tired enough to stop worrying. But every now and then, I would become so panicked that I would run screaming into my parents' room, waking up my brother and sister in the process. After an ordeal like that, there would be no way anyone would be getting a full night's rest. Eventually, after one particularly traumatizing night, my parents had had enough. Fortunately for them, they understood the futility in arguing with a 6-year-old and knew that they would be unable to convince me to rid myself of childish fears through reason and logic. They had to be clever. It was my mother's idea to stitch together my little bedtime friend. She collected a large assortment of random pieces of fabric and her sewing machine and created what I would later refer to as Mr. Ickbar Bigglestein, or Ick for short. Ick was a sock monster, as my mother called him. He was made to keep me safe while I slept at night by scaring away all the other monsters. He was pretty dang creepy, I had to admit. Honestly, looking back on it all now, I'm still impressed that my mom could think of something so strange and disturbing looking. Ickbar had the stitched together look of a Frankenstein gremlin, with big white button eyes and floppy cat ears. His little arms and legs were made from a pair of my sister's black and white striped socks, and half of his face was green and was made from one of my brother's tall football socks. His head could have been described as bulbous, and for his mouth, my mom attached a piece of white fabric and sewed a zigzag pattern to shape a wide grin of sharp teeth. I loved him at once. From then on, Ick never left my side. So long as it was after dusk, of course. Ick didn't like the sun and would get upset if I tried to bring him to school with me. But that was okay. I only needed him at night to keep away the boogeyman, which was what he was good at. So every night at bedtime, Ick would tell me where the monsters were hiding, and I would place him near that section of my room closest to the spookiness. If there was something in the closet, Ick would block the door. If there was a dark creature scratching at my window, Ick would be pressed up against the glass. If there was a big hairy beast under my bed, then under the bed he went. Sometimes the monsters weren't even in my room. Sometimes they would hide in my dreams, and Ickbar would have to come with me into my nightmares. It was fun bringing Ick into my dream world, as he and I would spend hours fighting off ghouls and demons. The best part was, in my dreams, Ick could talk to me for real. How much do you love me? He would ask. More than anything, I would always tell him. One night, in a dream after I'd lost my first tooth, Ick asked me for a favor. Can I have your tooth? I asked him why. To help me kill the bad things, he said. Next morning at breakfast, my mom asked me where my tooth went. From what she told me, the tooth fairy didn't find it under my pillow. When I told her that I gave it to Ikbar, she just shrugged and went back to feeding my little sister. From then on, every time I lost a tooth, I would give it to Ick. He would always thank me, of course, and tell me that he loved me, even though I ran out of baby teeth and I was beginning to get a little too old to be playing with dolls. So Ick just sat there on my bookshelf, collecting dust, slowly fading away from my attention. Over time, the nightmares, however, became worse than ever. So bad that they even began following me to the waking world, terrorizing every dark corner or rustle in the bushes. After a particularly bad night, biking home from a friend's house, where I swore a pack of rabid dogs were chasing me, I got home to find something strange waiting for me in my room. There, on my bed, standing fully upright in the soft glow of the moonlight from my window, was Ikbar. At first, I thought my eyes were just playing tricks on me again, as they had been all evening. So I tried to flick on the lights. Another flick of the light switch. Then another, and another, with no change to the darkness. Then that I started to get nervous. I backed away slowly towards the door behind me, my eyes never leaving the shape of Ick's silhouette, my hand awkwardly outstretched behind, reaching for the doorknob. I was just about to get my butt out of there when I heard the door slam itself shut, locking me into blackness. In nothing but shadows and silence, I stood frozen in place, not even breathing. For how long, I can't say, but after what felt like a lifetime of cold fear, I hear the shrill, familiar voice. You stopped feeding me. So why should I protect you? Protect me from what? Let me show you. I blinked once, and everything changed. I wasn't in my bedroom anymore. I was somewhere else. It wasn't hell, but the comparison wasn't far off. Some sort of forest, a horrible, nightmarish place where the partial embryotic abortions hung from canopy, and the ground swarmed with carnivorous insects. A thick fog wafted through the air, and with it the stench of rotting meat, while chartreuse lightning flashed across the night sky. In the distance, I could hear the agonizing screams of something not quite human. My head throbbed like it was about to explode, pain forcing out a river of tears. In my mind, I heard his voice again. This is what your reality would become without me. I felt the earth shaking, footsteps approaching fast. I'm the only one who can stop it. It was behind me now, huge and angry, hot breath crossing my neck. Bring me what I need, and I will. I woke up before I could turn around. The following day, I raided my parents' closet for my brother's baby teeth, giving them all to Ikbar. Almost immediately, the night terror ceased, and I was more or less able to go on about my life as normal. From time to time, I would have to sneak into my little sister's room and snatch what was meant for the tooth fairy, or strangle one of the neighborhood cats and pry out its sharp little incisors. Anything to ward off the visions. Anything from a shark tooth necklace to a cavity ridden buscabid. I also began to notice that Ick would move around my room whenever I left for any length of time, rearranging my stuff and hanging additional curtains. He was even beginning to look more lifelike now. In the light, his teeth would glisten, and he was warm to the touch. As much as he creeped me out, I couldn't work up the courage to just destroy him, knowing perfectly well where that would leave me. So I went on, collecting teeth for Ick throughout all of high school and college. The older I got, the more things I would learn to fear, the more teeth Ick would need to keep me safe. 22 years old now, with a decent job, my own apartment and a set of dentures. It's been almost a month since Ick's last meal, and the horrors are starting to crowd around me once more. I took a detour through a parking garage after work last night. Found a man fumbling with his car keys. His teeth were stained yellow from a lifetime of cigarettes and coffee. Even still, I had to use a hammer to get out the molars. When I got back to my apartment, he was waiting for me. On the ceiling in the corner, two white eyes and a mouth of razors. "How much do you love me?" he asks. "More than anything," I reply, taking off my coat. "More than anything in the world." And that was Ickbar Bigglestein by Stephen D. Harris. Anyway, welcome to everybody who came in while I was reading. Sorry, I did see you guys come in. I was trying to focus because I wanted to make sure that I didn't, you know, ruin the atmosphere, so to speak. But yes, hello and welcome. Feel free to lurk. Here we go. One's a bit longer. Now, this one I think I remember listening to before. Well, then again, that one might be a little too long. Okay, this one might be a little bit better. Rap Rat by Canadian Cowboy. The terror begins. Ever heard of Nightmare? Like a lot of other games in the 90s, It came with a VHS which you timed with your play. The character on the video would give you instructions on what to do while you played the game in real time. Being a scaredy cat, I refused to play it when my mom bought it for us. My brother was disappointed about not being able to play Nightmare, but my mom had a solution. She brought out Rap Rat. It was a cheap, dingy little thing, catered to kids my age. You went around the board, collected cheese, and the first player to reach the end would win. Seemed simple enough, and since it reminded us of Mousetrap, which we didn't have, there were no objections. We popped the movie into the VHS and set up the board. The first part of the video was just a simple explanation of the rules as well as instructions on how the game worked. Then Rap Rat came onto the TV. He was not what any of us had been expecting. My smaller brother, who was only 3 at the time, immediately left the room crying. Rat didn't even resemble a rat. The ears were far too big. It had a mouth lined with 2 teeth, and the inside of the mouth looked almost swollen. Most striking part about the thing, though, was the eyes. They were large, glassy, and fish-like. I asked, then bothered, then begged my mom to turn it off. Rap Rat suddenly shouted loudly, screaming and wailing, saying, "Wait your turn!" in a demonic, low-pitched voice that was not at all like his normal, obnoxious nasal voice. In the background, we could hear the narrator saying, "He's Rap Rat, and he is the boss," over and over again in an overly serious tone. The video was indescribable. Images crossed the screen in quick succession, overcut with Rap Rat's expressionless eyes. The images were some of the things I was afraid of at the time. A person looking over a balcony, a hornet slowly stinging someone's eye, an extreme close-up of a tarantula, a pit full of writhing cobras, and a bloodied syringe filled with green fluid. We immediately turned the video off, and I ran out of the room screaming, slamming my door. It took my mom 20 minutes to convince me that the video was gone, that I would never, ever have to see it again. I had nightmares all week about Rap Rat. That wasn't the last time I saw Rap Rat. While my boyfriend and I were preparing to move in together, I was cleaning out the closet of my room and found Rap Rat again with the same VHS and the same board game inside. It was almost perfectly intact, save for a thick layer of cobwebs and dust bunnies on top. It was strange. Did my mother get rid of it? What was the game doing in my room? I let out a bit of a gasp when I found it, and my boyfriend came into the room asking what the matter was. Breathing harshly, I said, "Rap Rat." He laughed a bit, asking if it was a joke. I shook my head, explaining that it wasn't. He didn't believe me. Nobody did. And I decided that the only way to prove it to her was to show her the video. I borrowed my neighbor's VHS and played the video for him. However, the images had changed. I saw a clown, its nose bursting and spraying blood onto the screen. I saw a woman alone in a dark room. I saw a man being forced to pick up white-hot metal and hold it in his outstretched hand, turning his hand into a leathery mess. Scratching I heard as a child continued picking up louder and louder. Then, Rap Rat showed up and began twisting and convulsing, its arms thrusting this way and that. The costume wasn't a costume anymore. The felt was real fur. Its face wasn't plastic, but instead a bristle of thorns with teeth. The eyes turned inwards and suddenly popped out again. Rap Rat's huge fish eyes were inside out, staring right at me, watching my every move, my every expression. They grinned widely and gestured to my boyfriend and I with a single outstretched, inhuman hand. I could hear the faintest scratching at my door. The TV went blank and showed static. The scratching got louder. It wasn't scratching anymore, but thumping. The thumping of tiny feet on wood. I embraced my boyfriend in fear and my senses kicked in. Before anything else could happen, I stopped the video, ejected it, and unplugged the VHS. Scratching stopped. When I looked out the living room window, nothing was there. Police showed up soon after, warning us that a neighbor had been seeing a figure outside of our door and had called in concern. My boyfriend and I simply couldn't explain what had happened and had to tell the police officer that it was us. I was furious that a children's game was terrifying me. I went to pick up the tape, but the VHS burned my hand. It felt like I had touched a Bunsen burner on the highest setting. We had to get the oven mitts from the kitchen in order to take it out, and even then it was scorching hot. Brought it outside, tossed it on the sidewalk, and crushed it with my winter boots. My boyfriend and I had nightmares every night. We'd both wake up in the middle of the night and describe eerily similar images that we saw in our sleep. Scratching would always be there at night, when the lights were off and the room was pitch black, save for the moonlight coming in through the window. Now, though, the scratching would happen every time I went near the door, every time we said Raffrat's name. It sounded as if something very small was dragging something across the ground outside of the door, pacing, waiting. I would simply wait with the covers pulled up to my neck until I succumbed to exhaustion. At this point, I was determined to sue the company for damages. First thing I did was call my mother and ask where she got Rap Rat. She had no idea. I found a merchant who sold versions of Rap Rat and asked how I could get in touch with the company. He sent me this email. I don't know about the game, but I know it was created by the same people who created Nightmare. The company is called A Couple of Cowboys. Try them. I did a bit more research and discovered that the company became defunct in 1994, only 2 years after the company created Rap Rat. I discovered why they did soon after. How Rap Rat came to be. In 1992, the year of the game's development, a couple of cowboys had commissioned a manufacturing company in Haiti to create the doll portrayed in the game. The company who created the puppet ran a sweatshop where they forced women and children to produce various components of the puppet, including the felt and plastic of the doll. One day, a young Haitian girl got her arm caught in the industrial sewing machine. The spring loader, unable to handle the weight on the machine, came loose and struck the child's neck, killing her instantly. A few days after the funeral, the mother of the child came to the factory demanding to see the owner, who denied that he had anything to do with it. In a fit of rage, the mother said that the blood from the innocent would seep into every crevice of the doll, every component with which it was created, and all who touched it would die. She claimed to have summoned a fear demon and screamed at the top of her lungs, "Apparat will curse you." The owner simply laughed and told his corporate bosses about Apparat. They spread the joke from the person to person, and the game was renamed Rap Rat, a loose anagram of Apparat. Each recitation of the name Apparat brought with it a greater and greater curse. Only 2 years later, after Rap Rat was created, the company was shut down, and the owners hired by Mattel. Stories of the workers begging for days off, skipping work for weeks and weeks, finding the puppet in strange places. Sooner were the stories of suicides. Grim, violent suicides in which the workers would stab their hands and burn themselves to death, writing "I am fear" on the nearest surface in blood. Nobody knows where the Rap Rat doll went after the original creators disappeared. Some say that the last things the victims saw before going insane were large, sunken, fish-like eyes. So here is a word of warning. Number 1. Never, ever say Aparat out loud. Saying a demon's name out loud is an invitation to them, a calling. If you've already done this, it cannot be undone. Number 2. Do not try to speak to or contact Aparat. Number 3. Avoid being awake between 3:30 a.m. and 4 a.m. when Raprat is most likely to try and scare you. The audio. VHS is back. I thought I stomped on it, smashed it to Kingdom Come, but it's back. Found it in my sock drawer yesterday. This time, though, I was ready. A whole bunch of people have been contacting me trying to get the tape for some sort of video from the board game. My answer to you is that it's just too dangerous. If I did that, it could very well drive you insane, scare you to death. The video and the game, and Raprat itself, has had some sort of strange power. Raprat follows me everywhere I go. I see little shadows in the corner, or hear sounds coming down the hallway when I'm the only one home. If Raprat is there, it will let you know. You will never, ever see it. Until it's too late, of course. A lot of people have been watching the normal video from the normal board game, and that's the thing. Raprat can be normal. It will trick you into thinking it's just a puppet, and then stalk you day and night. And that was Raprat by Canadian Cowboy. You hear tippy tappies late at night. I'm sorry. And hello, Zerg. Thank you for coming in. I hope you enjoyed the reading. I'm trying not to break, narration character while I'm reading. You know, got to keep things creepy, right? Like the Halloween version of my avatar. Thank you. All art credit goes to Stella. She asked if I wanted, a Halloween avatar this year, and I was like, oh boy, do I. Um, and so we were going with the possessed doll slash mimic version of myself. It was fun working with her to bring about this version of Stitches. I think it works really well. I'm still cute, but creepy cute. You know? Exactly, cute for Halloween. And yes, yes. think I recognize this one. Is this the one I'm thinking of? It is. Okay, this one's actually really short. This is actually a really good one though. I've always liked this one whenever I hear it. We're asking how I was doing. I'm doing great, thank you. Had headset off. I was. I mean, yes. I'm glad that you're doing well. Happy Halloween. I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna be streaming for most of the day today, so which is fun for me. Not gonna lie. It's like I get to take time off of work and have fun. Huh. I got my coffee here. I get to read creepypastas, which I've always wanted to do, but I've never actually gone around to actually doing it. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Think I'd be a decent creepypasta narrator? I think you could do that. I believe you could be a great creepypasta reader. Thank you. And if you guys like, creepy stories and stuff, there's actually a podcast that I listen to while I'm at work. It's called Tales from the Break Room, and it's allegedly true stories about creepy things that happened while either at work or going to and from work. And some of them are very interesting. Now, some of them I was like, are you sure that actually happened? Mm. But it's still fun to listen to. We also can't forget about the OG Creeps Pasta and all that good stuff. I also really like stories that have like the rules, like you have to follow these rules, otherwise you will die a horrible death. Love those stories. I know a lot of people find them annoying, but I adore them. Some of them are really good though. Anyway, this one's a shorty. The Portraits, also known as The Cabin in the Woods, by Anonymous. There was a hunter in the woods who, after a long day hunting, was in the middle of an immense forest. It was getting dark, and having lost his bearings, he decided to head in one direction until he was clear of the increasingly oppressive foliage. After what seemed like hours, he came across a small cabin in a small clearing. Realizing how dark it had grown, he decided to see if he could stay there for the night. He approached and found the door ajar. Nobody was inside. The hunter flopped down on the single bed, deciding to explain himself to the owner in the morning. As he looked around, he was surprised to see the walls adorned by many portraits, all painted in incredible detail. Without exception, they appeared to be staring down at him, their features twisted into looks of hatred. Staring back, he grew increasingly uncomfortable. Making a concerted effort to ignore the many hateful faces, he turned to face the wall and, exhausted, he fell into a restless sleep. Face down in an unfamiliar bed, he turned blinking in unexpected sunlight. Looking up, he discovered that the cabin had no portraits, only windows. That was The Portraits, also known as The Cabin in the Woods by Anonymous. Yeah, they are not a creepy pasta, but I've enjoyed, or one I've enjoyed is Skinwalker's Ranch. Oh yeah, Skinwalker Ranch, like the show. That is creepy. These are the famous, like I'm on the Creepypasta website reading the famous ones. Like there's the Russian sleep experiment, the rake, Slenderman, statue, Icky Toby. Oh, we have a story plus a sequel. I've never seen the show actually. Oh, okay. I only know it about it. Jimmy Atkins' Mysterious World podcast. Ooh. Another really good podcast is the Mile Higher podcast. They do a little bit of everything. Kind of like how BuzzFeed will often do a little bit of everything. But I mean, they'll talk about, true crime sometimes, but they mostly talk about entities and aliens and that kind of thing. Very interesting to listen to. I also listen to a lot of true crime myself. Happy All Hallows Eve. Hello, Fat Cat, and happy All Hallows Eve to you. And as you were lurking, I hope you've been enjoying the narrating so far. Have you seen that podcast before? It does seem like something you would like. Yeah, the Mile Higher is really good. Um, and if you like the thought of scary movies but don't want to actually watch them, Too Scared Didn't Watch is pretty decent. Although I had to stop listening to some of their stuff because they are very much left leaning and they're not afraid to say it. And I got a little bit ticked off because they clearly don't know the Bible very well, and they're just like throw out random stuff, especially when it comes to like an exorcism style movie. So yeah, and I also really like true crime, so I listen to Dark Asia with Megan, um, which focuses on Asian true crime. And then for regular true crime, I like crime, cults, conspiracies, and murder with Call Me Chris, as well as On the Case with Brianna Heim. And I just started listening to Mystery Mondays. Oh, also Murder with My Husband is also fun. Just the premise is really fun. It's this lady who loves true crime. Her husband doesn't like true crime at all and has absolutely no idea about any of it. And so she has to explain the case to him. And so that's it's his first time learning about any of the details of any of those cases. So definitely entertaining. A real fun husband and wife duo. Too scared didn't rush. Yeah, sounds like a fun podcast. Yeah, they're really good at explaining it too, but they do it in such a way that, that it's fun. It's like talking with your friends about a movie that, you know, you know, It's like talking with your friends about a movie you didn't watch. So you know what goes on, but you don't have to watch it yourself if you don't want to. And they cover from the famous ones to the more obscure ones, so you're not really missing out. Anyway, on to our next story. We have The Theater by Anonymous. Have you ever heard of an old PC game called The Theater? Yeah, I didn't think so. Probably because many people say it doesn't even exist. See, The Theater is an old computer game released around the same time as Doom. Today, if you ever find it, it's only available on the crappy bootleg CD-ROMs, which more often than not don't even actually contain the game. The actual legitimate copies that they say were released back in the day feature a blank cover with nothing but the sprite of what has since been named the Ticket Taker. He is simply a poorly drawn, pixelated Caucasian, bald man with a large red lip, wearing a red velvet overshirt and a white shirt and black pants. He is completely emotionless, though some say that if you smash the disc, his face is shown as angry for the next time you look at the cover. This is just dismissed as an urban myth. What is peculiar about the theater, though, is that there is no developer named on the jewel case, nor a game description on the back. It is simply the ticket taker on a white backdrop on both sides. The game was initially known for its inability to install correctly. The installation process immediately locks up the computer when the user reaches the licensing agreement. Also strange about the licensing agreement for the theater is that whenever the development studio is supposed to be named, the text is simply a blank line. Anyways, most people who have claimed to own one of the original CDs say that they figured out how to install the game by simply rebooting their computer on the licensing agreement with the disc still inside. Then they are prompted to press I agree on startup. Then they continue with the installation. The game then starts up without any introduction besides the main menu that is simply a sprite of a movie theater's exterior on an empty city street. The title fades in, and then the three menu buttons New Game, Load, and Options. Selecting the options immediately crashes the game to the desktop. Load is said not to function at all. Even if you do have a saved game, nothing happens when you press it. Thus, New Game is the only working menu option. Once it is selected, you are in the first-person view. You are standing in an empty movie theater lobby, with the exception of the ticket taker standing in front of a dark hallway, which one can only assume leads to the theater themselves. There's nothing to do but look at the poorly drawn, mostly illegible movie posters, or approach the ticket taker. Once the player moves towards the ticket taker, a very low quality sound clip plays saying, "Thank you. Please enjoy the movie," along with a speech box saying the same thing. When you walk into the hallway and the screen fades to black, and you're back in the empty lobby and you do the exact same thing again and again and again. While this may sound like a really horrible game, a number of peculiar things occur as you continue to play it. The number of times you have to continue into the hall after giving your ticket to the ticket taker before the strange events happen is unknown. Most state that it's completely random and could take anywhere from the first playthrough to the 400th. What happens, though, has deeply disturbed some players. The first occurrence is when the player fades back in after walking into the hallway. This time they will notice the ticket taker is completely absent. The player then, without any other options, decides to walk into the dark hallway. Sound clip and text box mentioned previously still play in the absence of the ticket taker, but when the player walks into the hallway, the screen does not fade out. It goes pitch black as they walk deeper into the hall. But the player's footsteps sound clip is still playing as they continue to push the up button on their keyboard. Those claiming to have played the original game report that they have felt extremely uncomfortable walking down the hallway, anticipating the whole way something horrible happening. Well, eventually the player is unable to move forward. There's nothing for a few moments before a strange sprite that is described as the ticket taker, but with a swirl for a face, appears and stands before the player. The original players of the game say their bodies immediately froze up and their stomachs churned when they saw the sprite, which has been appropriately named the Swirly Head Man. Nothing happens as the Swirly Head Man stands before them. Then suddenly, a piercing screech plays as the game glitches out. This lasts for a few minutes, with the screeching being continuous. Then the player is abruptly returned to the lobby with all the sounds and graphics being as they should be. The game continues normally for the next couple of cycles of entering the hallway, with a couple of the original players claiming the swirly head man would briefly appear and disappear in the corner of the screen as a brisk yelp sound effect plays. Then, at some point, after meeting the swirly head man, the player sees the ticket taker pacing back and forth. Though there is no walking animation, the sprite's limbs are completely static, so he just hops up and down slightly as a substitute, with his eyes being wide and his mouth open to simulate a worried facial expression. Some players have noted that the movie posters have been replaced with images of the swirly head man, which has caused them to immediately turn their character's head away from the posters and approach the ticket taker. Then another different, low-quality sound clip plays, but the speech box contains nothing but corrupted characters that cause whatever text that would have been in the box to be completely illegible. Due to the extremely low quality of the sound, it is debated by players what exactly the ticket taker says at this point, though it is widely agreed that he says, "Never reach the other levels." Then the screen fades out once again and returns the player back to their restarting point in the lobby, but the ticket taker is gone, and the hallway is blocked by a large brick wall sprite. Touching the brick wall will immediately crash the game, and that's all there is to it. No one knows what the other levels are or how to gain access to them. Nor is it known why the swirly head man causes such acute fear in those who have seen him in the game. All the original copies of the theater have either been lost or destroyed. But the creepiest part is the fact that all the original players of the game claim to occasionally see a brief glimpse of the swirly head man out of the corner of their eyes. And that was The Theater by Anonymous. Definitely some interesting thoughts there. Yeah, I don't know if I would have had the patience to continue quote unquote playing that game. Especially if it takes, 400 tries to get to any of the creepy parts. Like, this game sounds even more boring than, what was it? Pain and Teller's Truck Simulator or something like that. Or it was like the bus simulator. Although I am pretty happy that people essentially make that game into like a charity thing where they just play that simulator for hours to get charity for, I think it might have been St. Jude's, but I don't remember. But it's something they do every year. Anyway, so this story actually has a sequel that was written. I don't think I would either. Would rather have it be an enjoyable game. Yep. I was like, at least give me something to do, right? Hello, Ten Can! Welcome! And happy Halloween to you! Oh, yep. Happy Halloween, Mom of Stitches! How art thou? And my creepy readings? Yes. Doing pretty good, actually. Alright. Okay. Noted. As eventually I would like to do. Love you. Be safe. Yep. Mom was just letting me know she was heading out. A sequel, from what you heard, seems like it would make for a great sequel. Well, I guess we'll find out. We'll find out here. Well, this is the sequel. Looks like it's fairly short, only 4 minutes of reading time, according to the website. Right? Maybe they found the other levels. That's what I'm thinking. Anyway, the true story of the theater, written by an anonymous author. It's not something whispered about in certain circles, not something that comes in a plain looking jewel case. It's not by a nameless, untraceable developer, and it's certainly not supernatural. The game in question is indeed called The Theater, R before E, and was developed by a company called Solita Software. Fairly certain it's an English company despite its Spanish name, and as far as I know, all they made was learning software. I have a math suite from them from somewhere around here. So the theater was probably meant to be some sort of edutainment game. The game was obviously never finished, probably from lack of funding or the whole company going under. The description in the story is actually pretty accurate. It's a first person perspective with flat sprites in a 3D ish environment, and glitchy as hell. The ticket taker has an egg shaped body, and one of his hands is huge and misshapen. I think to look like he's reaching out towards you for your ticket. The description of the swirly head man is also accurate. Just a glitched version of the ticket taker, but I saw a few people saying that he looks like Gygus. That's not the case. The features of his face are just swirled and red because his lips are gigantic. I have absolutely no idea why this happens, because while there are a few character sprites in the game's resources, that isn't one of them. Oh, and just to clarify, the sprite is a bit creepy. That's all. It's not terrifying. It'll never fill me with a sense of dread. It's just a bit creepy. The game plays pretty much exactly as stated in the story. So accurately, in fact, that I think the author just downloaded it somewhere and decided to make a scary story of his experiences. I'll admit that some things in it can be unsettling, but not, OMG, crap your pants scary. Like I said, the game is unfinished and very glitchy. I think the idea is to select a movie from the posters on the wall, enter the theater, and play a minigame. The minigames are glitchy and missing resources, to the point of being almost unplayable. There doesn't seem to be a time limit on any of them, so you just have to plow through until you've done something right enough times to be dumped into the lobby. What's described in the story is what happens if you don't select a movie. You'll be allowed to enter the theater, but since the parameter of which the game load hasn't been set, you'll just be dumped back into the lobby. Here's where it gets a bit weird. If you continue to enter the theater without choosing a movie, odd, sometimes creepy things will happen. I'm not sure why, but if I were to make an educated guess, it would be that glitching past the minigames like this causes variables to reach values that they weren't meant to, resulting in things appearing where they shouldn't. Or, you know, the game is just glitched to hell and back. It's been years, but there are some of the effects that I can remember. The swirly head man, movie posters appearing outside of their frames, textures changing color, legitimately disturbing audio issue, other characters, and other areas. The last two are obviously the most interesting ones. Sometimes you'll spawn in a small room with a back floor and green walls, which will cross the game if touched. Sometimes you'll appear in a room similar to the lobby with a concession stand. Kind of. There's a woman behind the counter with an incredibly poorly drawn popcorn machine and a soda fountain. It's all just an image on the wall. It's basically just a big yellow concession stand mural. I don't remember if you can interact with it or not. The only character that appears worth talking about is a guy in a brown jacket, who appears on the sidewalk outside the lobby. Looking back, I don't think the story mentioned this, but to the left of where you start out, the wall is a row of glass doors, looking out onto the street outside the theater. If you glitch past the minigames enough, a man in a weird looking jacket, I think he was supposed to be tweed? It's a mess. With a huge smile on his face, will be just on the other side of the doors, staring at you. I mean, a huge smile. Like Freaky Fred or Spark Brushel. Google image search if you want. Actually, since he has the same body shape as the ticket taker, he looks a bit like the mayor from The Nightmare Before Christmas. His smile isn't creepy though, just broad. What is creepy are his eyes. While the ticket taker, ashtray, and other sprites will always face you, the smiling guy is anchored in place, like one of the walls. His eyes, however, are always staring right at you. Just thinking about it gives me chills. Okay. While there's nothing overtly scary or supernatural about the game itself, that's one thing that I will admit legitimately scares me. Like a porcelain doll. That's pretty much all there is to the theater. If you can find it somewhere, I'd recommend downloading it just to see what it's like. Oh, one thing I'd forgotten. As stated in the story, getting the thing to run is, to say the least, difficult. I think someone got a hold of all the code and resources and just compiled it and added their own installer or something. Again, there's nothing paranormal about the installation. It just doesn't work well. And that was The Truth About the Theater by Anonymous. Food-based creepypastas. Hungry pasta. Uh, Big jacket and huge smile. Oh crap, a flasher. Yeah, that would make sense. Although when they mentioned Freaky Fred, I just like had a flashback to my childhood because I remember that I remember Freaky Fred. I remember Freaky Fred from Courage the Cowardly Dog, and if you've never seen it, um, it's creepy, but yeah, it's not like overtly scary. He doesn't even do anything particularly terrifying. Like all he does is shave people's heads. Like that's all he does. Yeah, Freaky Fred. Yeah, and like the entire episode is done in a is done in rhyme, which I rather appreciated. And also the way he says naughty is just it's perfect. It was so fun. Yes, yes. Perhaps I was a bit naughty. All right, I think I'm gonna do one more creepy pasta. What should we read? Looks like one of the more recent ones was from like 2019, and I don't recognize it. It says you can't trust everyone. Also white with red. Of course, Tiki Toby. The statue. Of course, we could always go like true, true old school creepypasta with the Russian sleep experiment, which is truly creepy. I've heard it a couple times. There's Mr. Widemouth. I would do No End House, but it would take way too long. You know little about creepypastas? Oh boy, that's like the best kind. Okay. In which case, we have to do oh, well, there's also Sonic.exe, but I don't know. But the Russian sleep experiment is like OG. I don't think you're familiar with that, so I wouldn't mind hearing the Russian. You have heard of Sonic.exe. Okay. We'll do the Russian sleep experiment. It's a little bit longer, but it is a true OG one. I can hear the dog barking in the background. That was the last of my coffee. Okay. Get ready to be creeped out. I'm gonna adjust my seat a little bit here and stretch. La 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 la. All right, here we go, guys. OG time. Just to give context, this was written, or at least it was posted in July of 2012. This is an old one, but it's so good. Who wrote it? I'm sure it does. I wonder, maybe it was. Ah, doesn't really say who the writer was. Not even in the tags. Alright, I guess it was an anonymous posting, or it was published by Creepypasta themselves. Alright, anyway. The Russian Sleep Experiment by Creepypasta Anonymous. Overview. Oh wait, that's just them telling you about the story. I'll read the overview regardless. Overview. Widely regarded as one of the most popular and widespread creepypastas ever written, the Russian sleep experiment is notorious as much for the gruesome nature of its content as for its plausibility. To this day, a large portion of the articles written about the story are attempts to investigate its validity or to debunk it as a hoax, something that speaks not only to the story's effectiveness, but also to the deeper social anxieties to which the story appeals. For those who don't know, the Russian sleep experiment is a supposedly factual account of experimentation acted out on subjects by the Soviet government and military in the wake of World War II. The experiment, ostensibly meant to explore the effects of sleep deprivation on the human body, was also used as to test a new gas that could keep people awake for days at a time. The report documents the degeneration of those experimented upon, individuals commonly referred to within the creepypasta community as the test subjects. The horrifying results of these experiments and the crazed, almost subhuman or demonic creatures it produces are often illustrated alongside the story, with one image in particular being representative of the entire myth. Read at your own discretion. The Russian Sleep Experiment. Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days using an experimental gas-based stimulant. They were kept in sealed environments to carefully monitor their oxygen intake so the gas didn't kill them, since it was toxic in high concentrations. This was before closed circuit cameras, so they only had microphones and 5-inch thick glass porthole sized windows into the chamber to monitor them. The chamber was stocked with books, cots to sleep on but no bedding, running water and a toilet, and enough dried food to last all 5 for over a month. The test subjects were political prisoners deemed enemies of the state during World War II. Everything was fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained, having been promised, falsely, that they would be freed if they submitted to the test and did not sleep for 30 days. Their conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted that they continued to talk about increasingly traumatic incidents in their past, and the general tone of their conversations took on a darker aspect after the 4-day mark. After 5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that led them to where they were and started to demonstrate severe paranoia. They stopped talking to each other and began alternately whispering to the microphones and one-way mirrored portholes. Oddly, they all seemed to think that they could win the trust of the other experimenters by turning over their comrades, the other subjects in captivity with them. At first, the researchers suspected this was an effect of the gas itself. After 9 days, the first of them started screaming. He ran the length of the chamber, repeatedly yelling at the top of his lungs for 3 straight hours. He continued attempting to scream, but was only able to produce occasional squeaks. The researchers postulated that he had physically torn his vocal cords. The most surprising about this behavior is how the other captives reacted to it. Or rather, didn't react to it. They continued whispering to the microphones until the second of the captives started to scream. The two non-screaming captives took their books apart, smeared page after page with their own feces, and pasted them calmly over the glass portholes. The screaming promptly stopped. So did the whispering to the microphones. After 3 more days passed, the researchers checked the microphones hourly to make sure they were working, since they thought it was impossible that no sound could be coming with 5 people inside. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must still be alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people would consume at a very heavy level of strenuous exercise. On the morning of the 14th day, the researchers did something they said they would not do to get a reaction from the captives. They used the intercom inside the chamber, hoping to provoke a response from the captives they were afraid were either dead or vegetables. They announced, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor, or you will be shot. Compliance will earn one of you your immediate freedom." To their surprise, they heard a single phrase in a calm voice responding, "We no longer want to be freed." Debate broke out amongst the researchers and the military forces funding the research. Unable to provoke any more response using the intercom, it was finally decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. The chamber was flushed of the stimulant gas and filled with fresh air immediately. Voices from the microphones began to object. 3 different voices began bending, as if pleading for the life of a loved one to turn the gas back on. The chamber was opened and the soldiers sent in to retrieve the last of the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what was inside. 4 of the 5 subjects were still alive, although no one could rightly call the state that any of them were in life. The food rations past day 5 had not been so much as touched. There were chunks of meat from the dead test subject's thighs and chest stuffed into the drain in the center of the chamber, blocking the drain and allowing 4 inches of water to accumulate on the floor. Precisely how much of the water on the floor was actually blood was never determined. All 4 surviving test subjects also had large portions of muscle and skin torn away from their bodies. The destruction of flesh and exposed bone on their fingertips indicated that the wounds were inflicted by hand, not with teeth as the researchers initially thought. Closer examination of the position and angles of the wounds indicate that most, if not all of them, were self-inflicted. The abdominal organs below the rib cage of all 4 test subjects had been removed. While the heart, lungs, and diaphragm remained in place, the skin and most of the muscles attached to the ribs had been ripped off, exposing the lungs through the rib cage. All the blood vessels and organs remained intact. They had just been taken out and laid on the floor, fanning out around the eviscerated but still living bodies of the subjects. The digestive tract of all four could be seen to be working, digesting food. It quickly became apparent that they were digesting their own flesh that had been ripped off and eaten over the course of days. Most of the soldiers were Russian special operatives at the facility, but still many refused to return to the chamber to remove the test subjects. They continued to scream to be left in the chamber and alternately begged and demanded that the gas be turned back on, lest they fall asleep. To everyone's surprise, the test subjects put up a fierce fight in the process of being removed from the chamber. One of the Russian soldiers died from having his throat ripped out. Another was gravely injured by having his testicles ripped off and an artery in his leg severed by one of the subject's teeth. Another 5 of the soldiers lost their lives if you count ones that committed suicide in the weeks following the incident. In the struggle of one of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured and he bled out almost immediately. The medical researchers attempted to sedate him, but this proved impossible. He was injected with more than 10 times the human dose of a morphine derivative and still fought like a cornered animal, breaking the ribs and arm of one doctor. When heart was seen to beat for a full 2 minutes after he had bled out to the point that there was more air in his vascular system than blood. Even after it stopped, he continued to scream and flail for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone in the reach, and just repeating the word more over and over, weaker and weaker, until he finally fell silent. The surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility. The 2 with intact vocal cords continuously begging for the gas, demanding to be kept awake. The most injured of the 3 was taken to the only surgical operating room the facility had. In the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed back within his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative they had given him to prepare him for surgery. He fought furiously against his restraints when the anesthetic gas was brought him to put him under. He managed to tear most of the way through a 4-inch wide leather strap on one wrist, even though the weight of a 200-pound soldier was holding that wrist as well. It only took a little more anesthetic than normal to put him under, and the instant his eyelids fluttered and closed, his heart stopped. In the autopsy of the test subject that died on the operating table, it was found that his blood had tripled the normal level of oxygen. His muscles that were still attached to his skeleton were badly torn, and he had broken 9 bones in his struggle to not be subdued. Most of them were from the force of his own muscles he had exerted on them. The second survivor had been the first of the group of 5 to start screaming. His vocal cords destroyed, he was unable to beg or object to surgery, and he had only reacted by shaking his head violently in disapproval when the anesthetic gas was brought near him. He shook his head yes when someone suggested, reluctantly, that they try the surgery without anesthetic, and did not react for the entire 6-hour procedure of replacing his abdominal organs and attempting to cover them with what remained of his skin. The surgeon presiding stated repeatedly that it should have been medically possible for the patient to still be alive. One terrified nurse assisting the surgery stated that she had seen the patient's mouth curl into a smile several times whenever his eyes met hers. When the surgery ended, the subject looked at the surgeon and began to wheeze loudly, attempting to talk while struggling. Assuming this must be something of drastic importance, the surgeon had a pen and pad fetched to the patient, who could write his message. It was simple. Keep cutting. The other two test subjects were given the same surgery, both without anesthetic as well, although they had to be injected with a paralytic for the duration of the operation. The surgeon found it impossible to perform the operation while the patients laughed continuously. Once paralyzed, the subjects could only follow the attending researchers with their eyes. The paralytic cleared their system in an abnormally short period of time, and they were soon trying to escape their bonds. The moment they could speak, they were again asking for the stimulant gas. The researchers tried asking why they had injured themselves, why they had ripped out their own guts, and why they wanted to be given the gas again. Only one response was given. I must remain awake. All three subjects' restraints were reinforced, and they were placed back in the chamber awaiting determination as to what should be done with them. The researchers, facing the wrath of their military benefactors for having failed the stated goals of their project, considered euthanizing for surviving subjects. The commanding officer, a former KGB agent, instead saw potential and wanted to see what would happen if they were put back on the gas. The researchers strongly objected, but were overruled. In preparation for being sealed in the chamber again, the subjects were connected to an EEG monitor and had their restraints padded for a long-term confinement. To everyone's surprise, all three stopped struggling the moment it was let slip that they were going back on the gas. It was obvious that at this point all three were putting up a great struggle to stay awake. One of the subjects that could still speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was straining his legs against the leather bonds with all his might. First left, then right, then left again, for something to focus on. The remaining subject was holding his head off his pillow and blinking rapidly. Having been the first to be wired for EEG, most of the researchers were monitoring his brainwaves in surprise. They were normal most of the time, but sometimes flatlined inexplicably. It looked as if he were repeatedly suffering from brain death before returning back to normal. As they focused on paper scrolling out of the brainwave monitor, only one nurse saw his eyes slip shut at the same moment his head hit the pillow. His brainwaves immediately changed to that of a deep sleep, then flatlined for the last time, as his heart simultaneously stopped. The only remaining subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed in now. His brainwaves showed the same flat lines as the one who had just died from falling asleep. The commander gave the order to seal the chamber with both subjects inside as well as 3 researchers. One of them, named 3, immediately drew his gun and shot the commander point blank between the eyes, and then turned the gun on the mute subject and blew his brains out as well. He pointed his gun at the remaining subject, still restrained to a bed as the remaining members of the medical and research team fled the room. "I won't be locked in here with these things. Not with you," he screamed at the man strapped to the table. "What are you?" he demanded. "I must know." The subject smiled. "Have you forgotten so easily?" the subject asked. "We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your bed every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread." The researcher paused, then aimed at the subject's heart and fired. The EEG flatlined as the subject weakly choked out. "So nearly." And that was the Russian sleep experiment. What'd you guys think of that one? I noticed that there were some writing issues that were apparent in the story, but I tried to catch them before I read them out loud. Anyway, missed the bit in the middle because of the ad break, but you thought it was pretty good? Okay. I'm sorry you meant. I was like, it's mostly, I mean, it really just depends on where the ad break happened. So the general gist is that, these people, um, like Russia decided to do an experiment with a stimulant gas that is supposed to keep people awake. And they challenged some prisoners, saying that they would free them. They lied. If they managed to stay awake for a full 30 days while on this gas. And they agreed. And they were fine for the first 4 days. But on the fifth day, things started going wrong. And then by day 14, um, because they couldn't observe anymore, the prisoners had pasted um, papers over the observational holes. But after the 14th day, they decided to go check on them because they couldn't observe them anymore, and they found out that they essentially tore out their own organs and stuff, in the madness of having to stay awake. They essentially became addicted to this gas, and it apparently the not being able to sleep caused them to essentially go mad, and all the worst parts of them came out, and were essentially keeping them alive, even though they really should have died. Which was that whole monologue at the end. Apparently, whatever side that um, the worst parts of humanity can't come out when people sleep. So essentially, keeping these people awake made it so that these creatures could, break into our world. Just like in real life. Yeah, I can see. I guess I could see that. I know that people who don't get enough sleep, you know, that really need the sleep are like, don't talk to me until I've had my first coffee. All right, guys, we're going to take a break. So I am going to temporarily, I'm going to temporarily turn off the stream. We will meet back in about 15 minutes. And we're going to be continuing with By Sweet Carol. We're getting close to the end of that game. So grab a drink, grab a snack, and we will be right back. I have to get back to work, but have a good spooky stream. I'll be streaming for most of the day, so, if you happen to come by later, by all means. This was just to get us all into the mood. Because I like a good creepypasta, so. But, if you guys want me to read creepypastas more often, I could probably figure out how to do that more often if you want. It is something that I do enjoy. Anyway,